string theory fabric arts fans, I am VooDoo Stick Mod. I'm in Tennessee. It's kind of windy and rainy, and it's probably going to drop by about 40 degrees or so today. So if we hear a little bit of noise, it's probably the rain picking up again. I am here to do an applique video. I know that Ricky has a lot of videos on the YouTube that show applique being done on something else, on a bag, on a fob, things like that. But I just decided, let's just do a straight up applique on a piece of clothing. So I have a sweatshirt here that I'm going to do for myself. It's just a basic cheap sweatshirt from Walmart. And I picked my design and I printed it out. Now this one only has one color of fabric for the applique, but the series of steps would be the same if you have multiple colors. You just have to go through them using whatever color applique fabric you need. So this is the design I'm going to do. It's the Pac-Man 8x12 Game Over design. So I printed out the design. The PDF that comes with your designs has this in it, so you just have to print that out. And this one, because it's so wide, I had to do a little taping of the two parts of the design together. And then what I do is I lay it on my shirt or sweatshirt or fabric piece, whatever you're gonna, if you're not doing it on an extra big piece of fabric that you're gonna cut down into a pattern for something else, then you wouldn't need to do this. But if you're doing it on an actual finished item, this is helpful because it helps you determine placement. So I'll zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so just so that you can see, well, maybe you can't see, it's kind of far away, but on this design, you can kind of see it. There's a crosshatch in the middle, and then on each edge, there's more bits of that. So you can use that to lay it on your piece of clothing or other item. Maybe it's a pre-made tote bag or something. And you can lay it out to where you want it to be. And then you can take a fabric marker, chalk, pencil, anything like that to mark your centers. Now for me, I'm using just this blue water erasable fabric marker, and I'm just marking my ends where those little lines are on the paper. Okay. Now I will give you a tip. If you use a water erasable pen like this, do not iron this before you use the water to get this off, because an iron will set this and turn it brown. Then I'm going to take a ruler and put it on those lines, and then I'm going to draw a bigger crosshatch in the middle. I apologize if you hear noise. I live in a house with a husband, 3 offspring, a dog, a cat, and a dragon. So there might be noise. Okay, so we have this marked. Here's my center point. Now I need to hoop this. Now I'm using my 10 needle because that's all I have. I don't feel like dragging all this upstairs to dig out the single needle. So I'm going to set this aside for a minute. I have a hoop that I have put, this is 3-ounce cutaway that I bought in a big 100-yard bolt. So you can use a poly mesh stabilizer if you want. You can use a fusible on the back of it if you want. This sweatshirt seems pretty sturdy. I mean, it's got a little bit of stretch to it, but it's not too bad. So I think just pinning it or things will be fine. I'm going to use just a tad of sticky spray. Just like that, just to help for when I'm hooping it, so that I can kind of position it where I want for the most part and then reposition as needed. So I'm going to shove the hoop up inside of here. I figured I would do it this way because I don't have those fancy hoops that don't have sides on them, because I bought a set and I didn't like them. So some people love their hoops like that. I don't. So you can see on my hoop, there's a little, and most hoops do, they have a little center mark. So I'm going to see that's where the center is here. But because that's the edge of the design, here's the hoop, I can feel it in here. I need to move this whole thing up. So I'm just going to grab my little top center mark and I'm going to place it down. Okay, and then I'm gonna kind of pick, that's why I like sticky for this part, because I can kind of move it around, and that's a little off, and then I can line that up, and then I can just smooth this out, and I can kind of put my finger here and feel, okay, that looks like it would line up with my bottom mark, so I didn't smooth it out of shape. Okay, so I'm going to smooth that out. Now, the not so fun part. First, I need to figure out where I put my pins, because I'm going to pin this too, because that's just who I am. But first, before I pin it, I need to move the back of this shirt out of the way, because we don't want to pin the back to the front, because then I'm going to have an unusable sweatshirt. So, without tugging on what I just hooped, I'm just rolling the back of the sweatshirt up out of the way. Okay, so now I have this kind of weird roll of fabric, but all that's under here now is my cutting mat. So now I'm going to pin this just to play it safe, and I'm going to pin it in a lot of places. So there's that one there. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom and I'm going to pin this. Okay. And now, yes, I know that this is way up here, and this was the very top of my design, which obviously I might not want to be that close up here to a pin. Okay. So what I will probably do is when I go to stitch this, I'll shimmy it like 1/4 of an inch down. So that's okay. But it just gives me a way to line it up in my hoop. So when I go to stitch it, and I'm going to check the center position of it, I'm going to make sure that I'm not too close to these pins, because most machines, at least every one I've had, has a trace option on the screen that will actually take your foot and trace the farthest outside edge of your design. I'm going to do that to make sure that I'm getting all that. I'm just going to throw the sleeves in the center for a minute while I spin this, and then turn it around, and I'm going to pin some more along the top edge here. Okay, and I'm going to find my corner and pin it. If it looks like I'm off screen, I'm sorry. I'm actually dragging the hoop kind of off the edge of my table because it makes it easier to get my hand under there to guide the pin. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to put another one in this corner. And I'm going to turn this. And I'm going to put one down here, I think. Okay, there's the edge. Okay, and then go just above here and pin. Now see, this is why when I make comments in the group and I say and pin it all the way around the edge, this is what I mean by that. I mean all the way around the edge. Because if you only pin it here and here, your fabric in the corners can get pulled in as it's stitching, and that'll give you puckers, and puckers aren't pretty. Okay, so I have this whole thing pinned, and now I'm going to hoop it put the hoop on the machine. So give me a second and I'm going to be right back. Okay, so now I have the sweatshirt on my machine. I can zoom out a bit so you can see that. Okay, so now it's in my machine. Now, my machine, the arm is under here, so my sweatshirt's hanging underneath. Okay, the back is down here. This is the bottom of the sweatshirt, which I've kind of pulled up out of the way. My sleeves are hanging off the side. In my machine, I have all my colors ready to go here. I'm going to use my trace mode on my machine. Let me see if I can pan over just a little so that you can see this symbol right here that looks like a dashed arrow going in a square is the trace mode on my machine. I'm sure that's how it is on most of them. We're going to go back to the shirt. Okay. And now I'm going to use that button to show me. See, it seems a little bit further down than what I had initially thought. So I'm going to see where this design goes. Okay. And it looks like all my pins are going to be out of the way. And I'm looking to see, okay, all of this extra is not getting caught anywhere either. So that's good. It looks like I could maybe come up a little bit though. So I'm going to I moved it to try to bring it closer to the top of the sweatshirt because I don't want it across my stomach. I want it up in the chest area. So I moved where it's stitching, and now I'm going to retrace to make sure that, again, I'm not going to hit anything. And it looks like those pins at the top are going to be a little close, so I'm going to adjust again where I am, and then I'm going to do another trace. Sometimes you got to do this a few times to make sure that everything's going to be exactly how you want it to be. Okay, and this pin looked a little close, so I'm going to move it a little further out. But otherwise, I think I'm good to go here. Okay, so now I'm going to start to embroider, and the first step on this one is going to be part of the applique, because it does the applique in 2 steps. It does every other letter to give you space to trim around it. So I'm going to do that, and then so I'm going to do color step 1 of this. Then I'm going to take it off the machine so I can, or I'm going to put the applique down, then I'm going to trim after that step. So we'll do color step 1, and then I will show you that, then I'll show you how I place my applique fabric. Okay, I'm not sure how well you can see this because it's a pretty thin line. This is just the die line for the appliques for the first step. So I have prepared some fabric. This is just black quilt cotton from Walmart. You can get it from Walmart, Quilt Shop, Fabric.com, wherever your favorite place to buy fabric is. It's just a basic like 60 weight quilting cotton. On the back I have applied Heat and Bond Light. It comes in a package, on a roll, or on a bolt. This is the label. It's made for sewing appliques. You do not want the Heat and Bond Ultra. That is meant to not be sewn through. It can gum up your needle. Bad news. You can choose, if you don't want to use an applique, a double-sided adhesive like this, you can choose to use a woven interfacing, like an SF101. This is woven fabric with a glue on the back. This isn't the really thin kind of gauzy looking mesh. This is actually, if you look at it, it looks like a very lightweight woven cotton. And then it has glue on the back. You can use this if you want. Heat and Bond Light you apply to the back side, and then you peel the paper off, and it leaves a double-sided adhesive. Okay, so it looks shiny on the back. You do need to peel the paper off. Trust me, I left the paper on. It will stitch through it, but it just makes your thing crumply afterward. So you want to peel the paper off, because then this is not sticky right now. This only gets sticky when you iron it. So that's why you need Heat and Bond Light. You don't want, there's another thing out there that looks similar called Steam-A-Seam 2 that says it's for appliques, and it is. If you're going to cut the pieces of fabric to fit in your applique die line first, because that, when you peel the backing, is sticky on the back, and it's going to be stuck all around your applique if you're going to do it the way we are, which is to just lay the fabric down and trim afterward. So Heat and Bond Light, good. Steam-A-Seam 2, good only if you're going to pre-cut your shapes. I don't like to pre-cut my shapes because then it's hard to make sure everything gets where I want it to go. You have options for this because there's 4 different pieces. You could cut these pieces of fabric down into 4 squares and lay them over each one, or you can do what I'm going to do, and I cut it into, you could have used one big piece over the whole thing and then trim around it. That's a little harder because you don't really, you got to trim one and then you got to move the fabric. Or move the scissors over so you can get into the fabric by the other one. So I cut mine in 2 pieces so that I can lay one down. Okay, and I'm making sure that I'm covering all the die lines up here. And then I'm going to lay another piece like this. And it's okay if you have to reposition, okay? So I'm going to do this. Now I'm just butting them right up to one another, so then that way they're not overlapping and I'm getting the bottom of this up in here, because I don't want that. So I'm just going to do that like that, and then I'm going to use my favorite thing ever, and I'm going to use some tape to just hold these ends in place. Okay, I'm going to hold that there. I'm going to do that like that. Okay, that looks good. I think I might put a piece of tape down here. I'm not going to put one up here because of where that is. Now I'm going to take this all tape covering all my die lines. Okay, now I'm going to put this back in the machine and run the next stop, which is the applique tack down for this part. So we'll be back. Okay, I'm back. I have the tack down for the first applique step, which was the first 4 letters in this design. I'm going to take the tape off. Okay, because I'm going to have to get in here to trim. Okay. And I'm going to get my applique scissors. I have these duckbill scissors. Some people prefer these double curve scissors. Whatever works best for you. Use whatever scissors you like. If you're using the duckbills, the paddle side goes toward the stitching you don't want to cut. Now this applique is just a triple, looks like a triple bean stitch around the edge. Some will have a very narrow zigzag. It doesn't matter. You just want to make sure that you're trimming close but not snipping stitches. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm going to need these big blank areas of these pieces of fabric to do the letters that need to fill this in. Because Gumver is not a very nice design. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and I'm going to just snip in till I get up to this. Then I'm going to turn my scissors and I'm just going to carefully trim right next to that stuff, but not snipping those bean stitches. Okay, now this one's going to take a lot of little snippy snips because there's a lot of corners in here, and I'm holding the extra fabric out of the way and just kind of working my scissors under there while being careful that I don't accidentally stab a hole in my sweatshirt. Okay, so we're just going to go snippy snip, and then this is a nice long one, so I'm just going to kind of pick this up so I can get my scissors under there, and then I'm going to, okay, now that's a big piece. I'm going to hold that so I can use it for that other applique. Now I'm going to turn my hoop. It's easier to turn my hoop than to turn my wrist and get good cuts. So I'm going to turn my hoop, and I'm going to continue around this letter. Okay. And continue around. This is why I take small cuts, because otherwise if I really stab in there, I could accidentally get a poke too close. So I'm just gonna take my time, turn the hoop again, go this way. Okay, snipping around there. Picking up the fabric every so often to make sure I'm not getting into the sweatshirt. I just like to flip it up a little bit. Then I can lay my scissors down and go along that edge. Turn. This is where having separate pieces for each one can be helpful, because then this isn't connected in here. So it makes it a little easier to get this line here without damaging the sweater underneath. I usually just stick my finger under and kind of make a tunnel for my scissors to go into there. Get rid of this paper. Okay. And now see, what I could do here to make it easier on me is I can just cut down. Then I can just move that out of the way. Then it's not all attached to this part here where I have to be maneuvering around all these little corners. Okay. Now you want to get, like I said, you want to get close without snipping the actual tack down stitches, because you're going to have a satin stitch that's going to go around this at the end that will cover any little extra edge of fabric there. Now some won't have that, some will have just a straight die line, so, or we'll just have a bean around the edge. Those are usually an applique that's designed to have the raw edge of your stitches hanging out. So we're going to take a break, and then I'm going to show you how to get in here. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video for a little bit. I'm gonna trim around these letters, then I'll come back after I've trimmed around these to show you how I get the center. Okay, I'm back. I didn't trim all of this yet because I realized I didn't really have a close-up shot of me trimming. So I'm going to finish up the rest of this letter with, you closer with the camera, so maybe you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. And some of these spots are kind of tight here, so we're gonna kind of get in here the best we can. carefully guiding our scissors. Oh, I'm way off camera. Sorry about that. And then because we, like I said, we want to make sure we're not accidentally cutting our garment or whatever it is we're trying to applique onto. Okay. And going around like this. Oops, see, I did it. I got a little too close there and I snipped those stitches. But that's okay. It's okay if it's just 1 or 2 stitches. You just don't want to do that all the way around because then you have nothing to hold your fabric onto. So right there, I got a little too close and I snipped into my stitches. But that's okay. Like I said, as long as it's just 1 or 2, we're okay. Okay, now we need to get into the R here. And okay, so let me see the best way to get in here is going to be, I'm going to very carefully just kind of pick with my scissors to kind of pull, basically use them the one time I want to actually stab into the fabric so that I'm getting into the hole, but I'm not, well, I'm off camera again. I stabbed in, but I didn't go into the underside. I just kind of took my scissors and just kind of plucked at it till I could poke in my tip of my scissors. And then I cut over to the edge very carefully, and then now I'm just going to applique trim inside here the same way I did around the outside. And I can, after the next applique step, there's an O that I will be able to use to demonstrate this again. Turn the hoop, not the wrist. 1, because you get a better cutting angle if you turn the hoop instead of your wrist, and 2, turning your wrist like that can actually eventually cause it to hurt, and we don't want to do that. Okay, there we go, back on camera. Okay, so now I've trimmed out the inside of that R. I'm going to come up here because I didn't do the G, which is different because it has an open end. So I'm just going to get up in there and get that taken care of quick. Turn the hoop. Boring video shots. Watching somebody cut applique. Okay. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay. Oops. Back on. Almost done with the G. Okay. Okay, G's done. I'm just going to take a lint roller here real quick. I'm just going to kind of run the lint roller over this to kind of get off any of the little scraps from the edges before I do the next step. Now it's going to go back on the machine for the next die lines, and then I'll lay down fabric again, and then I'll redo do the next step of tack downs. So I will be back soon. Okay, I'm back. I have, as you can see, done the other applique tack downs. We're going to zoom in here, and I'm going to do my best to trim out this A while you watch, so I can show you again how I get to that inside bit. So I'm just going to this part here. Okay, I'll show you the inside again real quick. So I take the point and I just kind of pick a little bit to kind of pull the fabric up and kind of get my scissors underneath there and then snip over to the edge. Okay, so I didn't cut the sweatshirt underneath, I just cut the fabric, the applique fabric. And then I'm just going to, just like before, I'm going to trim out this inside part of this letter. Being careful not to cut either the sweatshirt underneath or the stitches that are holding the applique fabric down. Some corners can be tight, so take your time. Okay. Cut. Okay. Alright, so the outside of that is cut. Okay, I'm going to, that's all cut out now. I'm going to go off camera for a bit. I'm going to trim the rest of these and then I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. I have cut out all of my appliques. Now I'm just going to go around and see if there's any spots where I don't think I got quite close enough in my trimming, because I want to make sure that the satin stitch is going to cover it. For the most part, I seem to have gotten it. There's just a few little edges that I want to clean up here. That's where the double curve scissors can come in real handy to kind of glide up next to it. And kind of trim them down. Alright, I think I'm good. So now on this particular design, there's no more applique, there's just regular stitching left. So I'm going to throw it on my machine, I'm going to stitch the rest of the colors, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks when it's done. And it's all done. So after the applique, I went through and I had it stitch all the other colors. Is it perfect? No, there's some places where I didn't quite get close enough to trim my applique, but it's for me and I'm fine with it, so I don't care. If it looks like there's some darker spots, it's because I actually dabbed those with water to get rid of that salt water erasable pen that I told you about. That's what this is over here. It's not discolored from anything that fell off the machine or anything. It's just water. And then I just trimmed the stabilizer from around the back. If you don't like it being raw exposed embroidery on the inside, you can use the stuff they sell. It's called Cloud Cover or Tender Touch to iron over it. Even when I round the corners, I have no luck with that. It falls off in the dryer all the time. I have a heat press. There's no reason it shouldn't stay on, but it doesn't. Another alternative is to use knit tricot interfacing that you can get at any fabric shop like a Joann's or whatever, if you want to put that over the back. I don't, because I'm always going to have a t-shirt on underneath this anyway, so it doesn't bother me. But if it's something that you want to do, you can. Hopefully this helped take some of the scariness or unsuredness away from applique designs. They're actually not that difficult. You just have to make sure you prep your applique fabric well and trim close, but not too close and not too far, and you're good to go. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I know that my technique might be different from others, so also keep that in mind. Also know that my videos are different from Ricky's. Ricky is a professional. I'm just some rando in the group that happens to be a mod that does videos from time to time, and I kind of fly by the seat of my pants, so my editing is pretty non-existent most of the time. But hopefully this helped you, and I guess we'll see what I'm going to do next when I do it. Have a great day.